preparing for a presentation and then delivering a presentation is energetically very draining. Even if you have a really thorough preparation process, the preparation process and practicing and then delivering in front of a small or a big audience, it's really energetically draining. So one thing is being able to manage the energy and the emotions along that process before, during, and after. So we can talk about how does someone feel is like they can be drained. They can also feel very intimidated. If you are in a position where your company has been acquired by an American company and suddenly you're in the meetings with native, like senior, let's say the sales team or even the board, and suddenly you find yourself in a meeting where everyone's native and you're very technical and they're from the sales team, it can be intimidating. You can feel completely overwhelmed and also nervous. That's a very common situation, is I feel nervous if I don't know the answer. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like the emotional state when people come to me. And sometimes it's the lack of knowledge, knowing that something can be done about that.
Exactly.
That we have tricks and tools for that.
For some of the people I work with, it's very curious, but there are things about mindset that the moment they kind of realize those things and have those mindset shifts, the change is like in just one session, maybe they completely change. Like, for example, something I find a lot with Spanish non-native speakers, it's about what you just said about working with natives. Some of they feel like because they are non-natives, like they compare themselves with the native speakers, they feel they are less professionals because of that. And it's like, this is something that you could never, there is not an amount of work or practice you can take. Like, you're never going to be a native, like you're never going to be an American or a British speaker. No. And for example, you are non-native as well. Like,
yeah, I'm non-native everywhere I go.
Like me, like we're bilinguals, let's say, no?
Yeah, well, I function in a trilingual, at the moment, in a 4-language life, and it doesn't matter even if I go to my home country. I've been away from there so many years that I'm considered like there's an expression in Finnish, but it's like, yeah, I'm an outsider. But just meaning a Finn or living abroad. So yeah, it's not about it's about the message and about the purpose. And about a lot of other things, let's say that way.
Exactly. Like, but do you find that some of your clients struggle with that, with comparing themselves with natives, or like they have to make this perfect English in a way that is not realistic with what they actually need, that is clarity?
I think some do come with the idea of like the word perfect. I remember I was recently recording a conversation about what does perfect mean in communication. Mm-hmm. And in that conversation, I completely threw the word perfect out the window, because I don't work with perfection. I work a lot with the mindset and a process, or having a framework in place. So getting into good habits of preparing for presentations, but perfect. In terms of what does a perfect presentation mean anyways? Even if you did it technically perfect, but your audience is not listening to you, mm-hmm. and there's an element that you can't control, is your audience. So okay. How can you define perfect when there's an element of that you can't control? So perfect out the window.
Yes. I think that's such an important advice for people to listen again and again. Like, you don't have to strive for perfection. And you work mostly with clients from tech, no?
Most of the time, yeah.
Most of the time. And they have to deliver presentations that are very technical.
Yeah, so there's an added element of, let's say, sometimes it's tech versus tech. So they have to explain something technical to their team. In this case, it could be a demo. So you've been building a website or an app, for example, and in an agile environment, you might be checking in every couple of weeks how it's going, and at some point you might do a demo, no? Mm-hmm. And so the demo is from tech to tech. And then sometimes you might have to do the demo for stakeholders. So then we're talking about tech to non-tech. So the problem in the end is being able to communicate and express your knowledge and your work but also to engage and interact with your audience. So there's there's several elements to that, which is not just about, in this case, a perfect demo, but it needs to be clear at least. I've heard of some horror stories, because obviously I don't get to see the demos, but I get to hear about the demos. And it's sometimes I wish I could be like a fly on the wall and hear the feedback from the audience, because I hear the feedback from the person who has presented. And then that doesn't always match what you think the audience perceived and what you felt or how you felt.
Exactly. That's why in this specific kind of thing, it's so good to have a coach sometimes that can give you some feedback. No, like for some people listening to us that maybe works in the tech and industry and have no idea about public speaking or about public speaking in your second language, that's actually there are people that help you on this. And what would you say to start with at home, like to start to improve their presentation skills in their second language?